7 years ago, I began fighting against gun violence in our high crime communities in Chicago. It is a great pleasure to be back here on the West Side, where I spent a great deal of time in Garfield Park, in North Lawndale, in Lawndale, working not only with the police, not only with federal agents, not only with law enforcement, but also with community leaders out here. What we fought for was to bring together as a partnership law enforcement and community leaders, because in 2002, the number of people being killed in this very police district of 100,000 people was 75. 75 people being gunned down every year in this district, whereas in other parts of the city, those numbers were 3 and 5 and 7. And what we did was we brought people who were the most likely to pick up a gun, the felons who had been convicted of gun crimes and had been paroled back to our neighborhoods. And what did we do? Did we focus on arresting them? Did we focus on catching them in crimes? What our focus was to try to prevent crime, to prevent people from picking up guns, to prevent our children from being killed. And when I say our children, believe me, to me this is an issue of social justice for not only our neighborhoods here, but our entire city, our entire state, our entire nation. And I guarantee you, if you send me to Washington, I will fight on this issue hard as I can. But we had a program that brought together community leaders and law enforcement, and over a 3-year period, we saw the number of people who had been killed in this district cut in half. The number of children who were being shot lowered significantly. The amount of gunfire in this neighborhood lowered substantially. And is it too high? Is it too much? Of course it is. But the numbers of murders in this district went down from 2002 at a high of 75 to below 35 in 2005. We are talking about 35 to 40 additional people who were alive at the end of each year as a result of these programs. I have a 2-year-old son. What is more important than the safety of our children? And there are people from this neighborhood and others who will come in here when there are high visibility crimes that occur. And they will talk about the outrage, about the importance of safety. But I want you to judge me and the rest of the candidates on our records. I have fought against gun violence in these neighborhoods because, to me, these are all our children. They are all God's children, and when we increase the number of people who survive, when we decrease the gun violence in our communities, we are fighting for exactly the right issues, and we are fighting for the safety of our neighborhoods. And let me tell you this. This is not just about law enforcement. This is about community programs that provide alternatives for people who have come out of prison, and alternatives for people who need the alternatives to the gangbangers and the crime that occur. And not only do I understand that, not only am I talking about that, but I have fought for that here on the West Side. And let me tell you, this is an issue of resources. At the federal level, just in the last month, there have been 2 multi-billion-dollar military programs that some in the Senate and Congress have fought for, that guess what? The military itself didn't want. There was a multi-billion-dollar plane called the F-22 that was getting pushed through the Senate that the military itself didn't want. There was a cargo plane, the C-17, that the military itself didn't want. We need to bring resources from Washington that are being wasted on expensive military programs back home to Chicago to provide resources to the community programs that can make a difference, to increase law enforcement that can make a difference. You know, you send me to Washington, I will fight for that. I have been the Inspector General of the City of Chicago. I have fought against waste and mismanagement in city government in the last 4 years, and there is some. And there is some in Washington, too. They don't want that plane. I will bring back 1 seat from that plane. 1 wheel from that plane could help fund programs that we need here. 1 wing from one of those planes could double the number of police officers we have here. 1 wing could double the amount that we have for our community service programs. Those are things that are very specific that can make a difference. And education can make a difference. We know we need education, and there's a school here on the West Side called Providence St. Mel. People here know Providence St. Mel? I've been on the board of Providence St. Mel School for 7 years. Providence St. Mel sends 100% of its graduates to college. Its students are African American 100%. They almost all come from these neighborhoods right here. They do well and they go on to college. We can do that across the board. Paul Adams is one of my mentors and a great leader here on the West Side. And education provides opportunity. Without education, we can have opportunity. But even with education, there is no opportunity if there is discrimination. And I say that as someone who cares about civil rights and will fight against discrimination. When my grandfather, my greatest mentor in my family, his father was an immigrant. They came to this country with no money. They settled in New Jersey. He commuted every day to Rutgers College. And then he got into law school, to one of the top law schools in the country. And he worked hard. And he graduated number 2 in his class at one of the top law schools in the country. And then he went to Wall Street, down to New York, to where the best law firms are, the best paying firms. And guess what? Not a single one of those firms would hire him because he was Jewish. That kind of discrimination was wrong then, it's wrong now. We understand standing alone. We cannot stand alone, and we need to stand together. I care about civil rights. Discrimination is wrong, and I will continue to fight for these issues and against discrimination if I am in the Senate. Let me talk about my most recent work. I've been the Inspector General for the City of Chicago for the last 4 years. That is the only independent anti-corruption office for the city. I have worked hard to uncover corruption and abuse in city government. And let me tell you, as some of the aldermen here and others know, I've stepped on some toes in City Hall. I have made some people angry, and that's been okay, because I am someone who calls them as he sees them. I am independent. I did not go there to be part of City Hall. I went there to be independent. And we made cases with the U.S. Attorney's Office, with the State's Attorney's Office. We have had too much corruption in this city, and it is time to end. It is time for the abuse of power to end. And how about all our tax dollars that go to city government? Are we confident that they are all well spent? Are we confident that there's not waste in city government? We uncovered millions of dollars of waste in city government, and then rather than burying these reports, we publicized these reports because you have a right to know. And if that created embarrassing headlines for some people, you know what? So be it. That's what our office fought for. When we looked at that parking meter deal, and we said this was not a good deal. This was not the best deal the city could have gotten. This was not the right kind of deliberation in the city council. And we wrote a report that called that out, and I am proud to have stood up with the people in my office on behalf of the citizens of this city to fight against waste and mismanagement and abuse in city government. And let me end with this. This is Barack Obama's Senate seat. In this historic moment, when we are so proud to have our former senator as president in the White House, we as Democrats, we need to keep this seat Democratic. That is critically important in this year. But let's acknowledge something that is reality in 2009 and 2010. Corruption is on people's minds. With the arrest and charging of Governor Blagojevich as the second straight governor in Illinois to be charged, corruption is on people's minds. And just as we as Democrats made corruption an issue when George Ryan was arrested, the Republicans and Mark Kirk are going to want to make corruption and Governor Blagojevich an issue in the next election. And guess what? They may be able to do that. This is on people's minds around the state. What we need to do as Democrats in this election is make sure that we have candidates for the Senate and at all levels of our candidacy who are strong against corruption. We shouldn't have to hear about Blagojevich and Rezko in this election. We as Democrats should be A+ on this issue. We should own these issues of ethics and integrity. There should be no Republicans talking to us about these issues, and we have to look at people's records on this. I have been fighting against corruption. I have been fighting for reform. I have been challenging the system throughout my career. I have never run for office before, and I will be strong on corruption. As people have been saying, I will take the corruption issue off the table if I am your nominee for the U.S. Senate. I am proud, very proud to stand up here before you today. Very proud to be asking for your support. Very proud to be asking for your assistance. My name is David Hoffman. I'm a Democratic candidate for the U.S. Senate, and I appreciate all your time today. Thank you very much.